Estarmos aqui com tantas pessoas tão queridas, com tantas pessoas que têm um papel tão importante nesse ecossistema de blockchain, Web3, de inovação tecnológica, de descentralização. Um movimento muito importante no mundo que está fazendo a mudança, fazendo a diferença para o bem. Então, a gente tem aqui muitas pessoas que vêm colaborando conosco aqui na comunidade do Capítulo Brasil, da Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. E hoje nós temos uma grande honra de termos aqui conosco a Daniela Barbosa, que é a diretora global, né, a líder mundial desse movimento, dessa fundação, que vem da Hyperledger Foundation, que já está aí há quase 10 anos fazendo um trabalho belíssimo nessa fundação, e agora ela tem uma nova marca, um novo branding, uma filosofia que foi ampliada, indo além de Ledger, além de blockchain, com outras tecnologias. A gente está muito interessado em ouvir da própria Daniela sua experiência nessa transformação do mundo, do digital, que realmente é uma grande honra para a gente não sermos apenas espectadores, apenas audiência. Nós estamos sendo protagonistas, participando e com tanta proximidade. A Daniela faz um trabalho tão bom, ela é tão querida, nos acolhe, a gente tem uma grande gratidão a ela. Junto com a Daniela, nós temos o pessoal do staff da Hyperledger Foundation, agora LFDT, Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. Temos aqui o David Boswell e o Hart Montgomery, CTO. So thank you very much, guys. You are so nice. So thank you very much for being here today. E eu já vou passar a palavra para a Daniela, porque hoje o show é seu, o tempo é seu. A gente quer fazer essa acolhida, fazer esse agradecimento, mas dedicar todo o tempo para você fazer essa apresentação. Eu estarei aqui o tempo todo, né, no suporte, nos bastidores, no que precisarem. Você, Daniela, e vocês todos que precisarem. Fiquem à vontade, teremos aí uma apresentação da Daniela e depois nós teremos a oportunidade de fazer perguntas e expressar nossos comentários ao final da apresentação da Daniela. Então, Daniela, seja muito bem-vinda, muito obrigado mais uma vez, a palavra está contigo.
Muito obrigada, Gisele. Podia fazer o Code of Conduct e também o Housekeeping em português e depois eu falo a minha introdução. Podia fazer, Gisélio?
Ok. A gente quer fazer a recepção de vocês aqui, e nós temos aqui na Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust essa filosofia de, eh, de acolhida. É uma fundação, é um movimento que segue os princípios da Linux Foundation, todo o código de conduta. Basicamente, esse código de conduta ele pede o respeito, ele pede a tolerância, ele pede que nós tenhamos um bom convívio em comunidade, em todos os nossos movimentos, em todos os nossos eventos. Nós temos uma comunidade muito generosa, onde temos acolhido pessoas que são developers, são programadores, são do mundo de tecnologia, são gestores, managers, directors, CEOs, CTOs. Também temos pessoas de outras áreas, como economistas, advogados, administradores, professores, várias profissões. Todos são muito bem-vindos aqui. E independente da sua área de atuação, do seu nível de conhecimento, se você é beginner, se você é um expert, se você tem muita experiência e vai compartilhar conosco, ou você veio aqui para aprender. Então, todos são muito bem-vindos, né? A gente segue essa política, né, esse código de conduta da Linux Foundation, e a gente tem assim uma convivência muito boa em todos os nossos eventos. Se vocês tiverem alguma questão, vocês podem levantar a mão, pedir, né, para falar, mas a gente vai concentrar para fluir melhor as perguntas no final. Eu vou tomar nota de tudo, vocês podem mandar no chat, eu tomo nota, grupo, e no final a gente faz aí um Q&A, né, um momento para responder essas perguntas, inclusive que estará ajudando a Daniela com o Hart, né, que é o nosso CTO aqui da LFDT. Essa sessão está sendo gravada, então nós pedimos a permissão de vocês para coletar som, imagem, o áudio, o vídeo de vocês. Isso estará gravado e será divulgado nas redes sociais da LFDT, no nosso canal do YouTube, na Wiki, em outros materiais a gente divulga nas nossas redes sociais. Então, pedimos a permissão de vocês, aqueles que estiverem aqui estão consentindo com a gravação dessa sessão. Daniela, penso que seria isso. So, thank you very much again.
Muito
So,
obrigada, Josélio. Ao Josélio, meu grande amigo. Se não fosse
sim,
você, o Regional Chapter do Brasil não estava a contribuir tanto para o mundo inteiro. So, muito obrigado. E depois da minha apresentação, vou pedir a você para voltar para o palco para falar conosco também. Um, boa noite, toda a gente. O meu nome é Daniela Barbosa, eu sou o Executive Director do LF Decentralized Trust e também sou o General Manager na Linux Foundation de Decentralized Technologies. Você vê, podem ouvir pelo meu sotaque, eu sou portuguesa, nasci em Portugal, vim para os Estados Unidos com 10 anos, por isso já sou mais americana que portuguesa. Mas a minha família, e os meus pais, os meus primos, ainda estão todos em Portugal. E eu adoro os últimos anos que tive de falar e apresentar para a comunidade aí no Brasil. E é um prazer estar aqui hoje a falar sobre a jornada do Hyperledger Project e o que é hoje o LF Decentralized Trust. Eu vou falar inglês para o resto da apresentação. Aqui estão os meus colegas também, o Hart Montgomery, que é o CTO do Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust, e ele vai vir para o Q&A, e também o David Boswell, como o José lhe disse, que é o nosso Senior Director of Community Architecture. E eles estão cá e vou falar em português e vou falar em inglês, como o meu inglês é um pouco melhor que o meu português, mas o português e o brasileiro, o português está a ficar melhor e melhor. So, bem-vindo a toda a gente. Eu quero começar o que é que aconteceu há 6 meses. So I'm going to start with the journey that started 6 months ago with LF Decentralized Trust and why it's important as the evolution of Hyperledger, of the Hyperledger project, the Hyperledger Foundation, and all the Hyperledger projects that you are very familiar with, and why Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust is an opportunity for all of us around the world to really expand on the contributions that we've been doing in this space. So 6 months ago, we launched Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. And what that was we brought in the Hyperledger Foundation and all its projects, and Trust over IP, one of another Linux Foundation projects that's a joint development standards project. And we took all the projects, we took Trust over IP, and we brought in new projects as well, including Hyro, which is the entirety of the Hedera code base, and Loch Ness, which is a cryptography library. And this is just because of where the industry as a whole is and where we as an open source community can really make the most impact across our members and our community as well. So I'm very honored to be able to tell you the story about the blockchain at the Linux Foundation and where we are today. So it was almost 10 years ago, on December 17th, 2015, that the Linux Foundation made an announcement about a project that was being formed to develop enterprise-grade open source distributed ledger framework. And one open source distributed ledger framework. And that was the focus of the contributing companies that got together. We had companies like Accenture and Cisco and Dutch Beurs and Digital Assets and Fujitsu and many more. There was 23 different companies that came together to work on one open source distributed ledger framework. When we made the announcement in 2015, I was not here. I joined the Linux Foundation in 2017. The goal was really to bring blockchain into the enterprise space. So I'll have a question, maybe a quiz, and if you all can put into the chat, the question is, who contributed the Hyperledger trademark to the Linux Foundation? Was it IBM? Was it Digital Asset, the company, not the technology? Or was it the community? Did the community come together and make up the Hyperledger name? So if you want to vote, if you can put it into the chat, if you think that IBM contributed the Hyperledger trademark name, please put a 1. If you think Digital Asset, the company, contributed the Hyperledger trademark, please put a 2 into the chat. And if you think the community came up with the name Hyperledger, please put 3. So let's take a look and see what kind of voting you have. Okay, Pedro thinks it's the community that made it up. It's a good guess. Any other guesses? João, also the community. Okay. Any other guesses? Ok, professor diz 3, mas acho que há muita gente pensa que é o 3. Community made it up. Any more votes? Any more votes? Actually, the Hyperledger brand, the trademark that was formed to form the Hyperledger project in 2015, after the announcement. So if you saw the announcement on my page before, it didn't have the Hyperledger name. It was just a blockchain foundation that was formed, was contributed by Digital Asset, the company. Digital Asset has been a member of the foundation since 2015, and they also are code contributors. There's a project there's a lab called Splice, which is a core component of the Canton network that is now also under LF Decentralized Trust. So for those of you who said 1, George and Zé, you said IBM, and the others that said community makeup. Let's see, I don't think anyone said 2. So the origins, once again, of the Hyperledger trademark was from Digital Assets. And it was a great, at the time, trademark contribution to us. So when we look at Hyperledger from a project to a foundation, we iterated quite a bit starting in 2015 when the Hyperledger project was launched. After Digital Asset contributed that trademark, we started calling ourselves the Hyperledger project. Very shortly after, we started using Hyperledger blockchain technologies for business as the brand that we used. And then in 2021, we became the Hyperledger Foundation. And why is that? So in 2015, as you saw in the press release before, Hyperledger Fabric was the only project that the foundation started with. And Hyperledger Fabric was contributed by IBM, and today continues to be a very important project within our community, and very well adopted through the enterprise. But shortly after, in 2016, we had projects like Sawtooth, that was a contribution by Intel. We had Hyperledger Iroha, which was a contribution by Seramitsu. And you can see over the years, more projects came in. In 2017, we started having projects, Hyperledger Indy in a digital identity space, Hyperledger Burrow, which was the first Ethereum virtual machine project that we had, and Hyperledger Quilt in the interoperability space. And you'll see that as 2017, 2018, and 2019, more of these projects really started to expand beyond that one ledger, which was Hyperledger Fabric when the foundation was brought. And that's why in 2021, we launched and rebranded the Hyperledger project to be called the Hyperledger Foundation, because we were no longer a project of one project, but of multiple projects. And very importantly, multiple communities working on different aspects in the blockchain space, whether it be identity aspects like Indy and Aries, interoperability with Cactus, and many other tooling like Firefly and Bevel. So we started really expanding the scope of the Hyperledger project just as an evolution of what the market and the open source community was building and wanted to build collaboratively under the Linux Foundation. So why was this evolution needed? right? Why did we need to expand out after 9 years of that? The blockchain's landscape for sure has expanded. Even in the last 6 months, globally, a lot more expansion around digital assets and tokenization. So it expanded across decentralized technologies, and I'll explain and define what we mean by decentralized technologies next. There's also a broader market need for trust infrastructure beyond just blockchain. In a decentralized identity community, for example, there are many projects that are powering decentralized identity frameworks across the world. Like in Bhutan, for example, their entire digital identity framework is powered by Linux Foundation decentralized trust projects. There's also a growing community of enterprise users that demand for flexibility and cross-ecosystem relevance. It is not just about one thing, and I'll talk a bit about the expansion of that in a bit. So when we talk about decentralized technologies, so LF Decentralized Trust is focused on decentralized technologies, we're referring to systems that are essentially do not rely on a single central authority. Right. This approach, we believe, enhances security, privacy, and resilience across failures or attacks. And some of the examples of the technologies that are currently within the foundation and also in the pipeline of new projects coming in are projects that are obviously blockchains and distributed ledgers, smart contract languages, decentralized file storage, decentralized identity systems, zero-knowledge proofs, multi-party computation, and federated systems. And we'll have an opportunity to get your questions and answers a little bit further on to identify those. There is no doubt that the impact of decentralized technologies around the world are rapidly reshaping markets and really disrupting traditional business models and systems. But what we're seeing across the world, whether it's in Brazil or in Europe or Asia Pacific and even in the United States, is that across the private and the public sector, there's not a fear of reshaping these markets, but an understanding for a need to modernize the core infrastructure in finance, in trade, in government, in healthcare, and so much more across the industry. And just in tokenized assets alone, this report from BCG last year, where asset tokenization alone is predicted to have a market cap of over 16 trillion by 2030. And I would suspect that over in the next 6 months to 12 months, that number is going to even be bigger. And LF Decentralized Trust and the regional chapter in Brazil and many more around the world are really core to this large movement. We've said very early on that there is not one blockchain to rule them all, and there's certainly not one size fits all. There are many different blockchain use cases, some that are permissioned and private requirements, and others that are public and permissionless. And since early on in the Hyperledger project and our community, we felt that our foundation and the work in the community was going to be working on needed to expand out to both public and private and permissioned and permissionless use cases. And we're very proud that today we have projects really across the ecosystem. It's also important to understand the importance in 2015 when those companies came to the Linux Foundation and said, we want to create a place to work on enterprise blockchain solutions, that the importance of being part of the Linux Foundation was really important in regards to these technologies. As decentralized technologies, the core is decentralization, and the Linux Foundation for the last 25 plus years has been the home for some of the most important open source projects, but very importantly, the way that open source, open governance, and open development is done in a neutral foundation. And we're very proud to be part of the Linux Foundation and really driving a lot of the Linux Foundation aspects in decentralized technology. So why was it important for us to rebrand and expand out to a new foundation called Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust, or LF Decentralized Trust? The Linux Foundation is very powerful. Although Hyperledger, no doubt, around the world is a very powerful brand, and we're so happy that many of our brands will continue to use the Hyperledger brand and really leverage that, the Linux Foundation continues to be a power brand across the world. It implies global trust and neutrality as the worldwide neutral home for critical open source technologies. Things like the Linux kernel, obviously our namesake, but others like Kubernetes and cloud native computing, PyTorch in AI space, and many more. Even in the film industry with the film industry foundation that we have. With the Linux Foundation, we also have scale and influence. There's close to 2,000 member organizations across all our foundations, millions and millions of developers, and really billions of devices and different software that rely on Linux Foundation projects. And there is no doubt that the Linux Foundation model is providing impact worldwide, and there's an estimate of $54 billion annual economic value that is created by across all Linux Foundation open source projects, really driving global innovation that's open and neutral as we go along. So the Linux Foundation brand is really important. And as I mentioned, the Linux Foundation brand is behind some of the most critical projects around the world, and you can see them here, really driving industries, whether it's the telecom industry or the energy industry or the cloud computing industry. And it's really important for us to really be aligned with that as well. And what you see is that the Linux Foundation brand across some of these umbrellas where technologies and different projects come together and they elevate themselves to these umbrellas are really important. So LF networking in the telecommunications industry, for example, about 75% of open source projects in the telecommunications industry are under the LF networking umbrella, with many known projects in that space. Things like LF data in AI, I mentioned PyTorch to that before, and many others projects that are under that umbrella of LF AI and data, and others as well. And that's where we got to LF Decentralized Trust, where we put the blockchain and decentralized identity projects under an umbrella, really to benefit the model of having an umbrella working together. So let me take you through some of these benefits of having an umbrella foundation model, which we are today at LF Decentralized Trust. First and foremost is shared infrastructure and services. If every time a project needed to launch a new foundation, or they, perhaps didn't want to be under the Hyperledger Ledger brand and they wanted to launch a new foundation, that costs money, but it also costs fragmentation in the market, meaning that people and developers don't have one place to go to, they have to go to multiple places. So shared infrastructure and services is something that these umbrella foundation models bring to the market, where we have common resources for legal support, security audits, marketing amplification, event management, and developer enablement. And this really helps all the projects, whether they're small or big, really elevate and move forward in their mission and charters to grow their projects and get adoption on their projects. The umbrella foundation model also enables cross-project collaboration, so that projects within the umbrellas and across multiple umbrellas can align on standards, interoperability, and joint initiatives. And this really facilitates a lot of the things that our industry, right, the blockchain and decentralized identity industry, really need to move forward and move forward fast in order to meet market and ecosystem needs. And last is a stronger ecosystem presence, right? Being able to be unified under a globally recognized foundation, LF Decentralized Trust, as part of the Linux Foundation, but also preserving project autonomy, credibility, and focus. And I'll talk a little bit about that because it's really important to understand that our projects have the autonomy to be their own projects. Another thing that is really important is the benefits of independent project brands and communities. So each project maintains and can maintain its own unique identity, technical governance, and community culture. Hyperledger Fabric, for example, is very, very well known and will continue to be known as Hyperledger Fabric, and they have their own identity, and we support that within the umbrella. Besu, which used to be known as Hyperledger Besu, the maintainers of Besu decided to drop the Hyperledger name, and now they're known as Besu. This allows them to have their unique identity and continued. And you can see this happens to be from our store, where you'll see t-shirts that are designed by community members. This one, My Network Runs on Bezu, Does Yours, was a contribution with a contest that we did with Bezu community members. And you'll see more of that unique identity really driving. But ultimately, everyone is still under that LF Decentralized Trust umbrella, with those benefits of working within the foundation. When we look at LF Decentralized Trust from a governance structure, it is quite different than what it was within the Hyperledger Foundation and previously in the Hyperledger project. If you recall, when I mentioned that Hyperledger was formed with one project at the time in 2015, which was Hyperledger Fabric, and then shortly after Sawtooth, Explorer, and Iroha came through. At the time, the Hyperledger project had one technical steering committee, and one project charter. So everybody, all the projects as they continue to grow, were under one project charter. So the charter for each project, the maintainers essentially had to go up to the steering committee. One of the big changes that we did to become this umbrella organization under LF Decentralized Trust was allow the projects to have their own project charter. So today, Bezu, Hyperledger Fabric, Trust over IP, they all have their own project charters and governance, and the maintainers are essentially the ones making a choice of how their charter is written, what their requirements are, with some guidance, of course, from the Linux Foundation. And each project also has their own technical steering committee. I cannot tell, as executive director of LF Decentralized Trust, I cannot tell the projects what to do. This is up to them. The maintainers are essentially the kings and queens of their projects, and we help support them, making sure there are specific things that they do as part of that. But overall, they're the ones that decide what is best for the project and how they want to manage it. Staff at LF Decentralized Trust is just here to support them. We do have a technical advisory committee, and those representatives assist the projects and, very importantly, have guidance across all projects for example, best practices on security, open source security practices. Each project has to do a yearly project report up to the technical advisory committee and quarterly updates up to the technical advisory committee to make sure that all our projects are following the best practices in project governance, and very importantly, being whether it's depending on where they are in the project life cycle, being the meeting the needs of what we believe is enterprise grade open source. Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust has a governing board, of course, and we're very appreciative of all our governing board members. We do have outreach committee that is part of our marketing communications with our members, and we're going to be announcing that our projects will now have representatives in that outreach committee as well. And we have other committees and councils as well. So the Technical Advisory Committee, and you can see here some of the great TAC members for 2025. Our chair is Tracy Kurt, who's been the chair of the Hyperledger Foundation Technical Advisory Committee in the past. But you can see here we have a very diverse members of the TAC that are really helping, once again, the projects make sure that they have the tooling and the resources that they need to be successful. And we're very proud of a very diverse project across projects and across communities as well. So we have a growing landscape of decentralized technologies. These are some of the brands that you know and love, projects like Hyperledger Fabric, Bezu, Hyperledger Firefly, and many others that you see here. And it's really important for us to, as we look at these and as we continue to expand, look at them in categories. So we categorize them as ledger technologies, interoperability, integration and implementation, decentralized identity, and cryptographic tools and protocols. So you'll see some of these names. Some of these projects are new. I mentioned Hyro, for example. That was a new contribution that came in when we launched LF Decentralized Trust, which is the entirety of the Hedera code base. We have a new project we'll be announcing soon. I can't share with you the logo, although we have a logo approved until we announce it, which is called Smoot in the interoperability project sides. And as you'll see, and we're happy to come back and do more sessions and introduce you to some of these maintainers. The goal is really to nurture and to bring in new projects that are focused, once again, on decentralized technologies in the enterprise space as well. We have a growing landscape of these technologies, but very importantly also, we continue to expand outside the ecosystem of just permission distributed ledgers. So Besu, for example, today runs 16% of the Ethereum mainnet. That means that Besu is critical to the Ethereum mainnet. And that means that Besu has complete parity with what's happening in the mainnet and long-term optionality for those that choose Besu as an EVM. But we also have other projects that obviously I mentioned Hedera with Hyro, Solana with Solang. We have projects in the Cardano ecosystem, including Identus, and many more to come across these public ecosystems that are really driving a lot of the activity in the digital asset and the tokenization space as well. Here on the right side, you'll see some of the connectors, and we have connectors from Cacti, but also in Firefly, connecting into Polygon or BNB and Arbitron, Optimism, Moonbeam, Avalanche, and many others. So our growing landscape is not just within the foundation, but also outside in the ecosystem, the global ecosystem of blockchains. So we continue to have growth and momentum. We've been 9 years building out. We have hundreds of global enterprises and startups who are members, many here there in Brazil that were always so proud of supporting our Brazilian members that we have. We have 17 different projects that are in graduated or incubated projects, and over 50 active labs across all different type of use cases. Really some exciting things happening in the labs. I always suggest if you want to keep track of what's happening and up and coming, subscribe to the GitHub and the labs and you'll get that. We have our first joint development fund standards project with Trust over IP. We have the growing regional chapters and meetup communities and continue to grow really our community as well as we go. We are averaging about 1,000 new members joining our meetup community worldwide. And of course, I'm so proud, o prazer e sou toda orgulhosa do Brasil chapter, the Linux Foundation Brazil chapter, que hoje tem quase 5.000 participantes e mais de 19% increase desde 1923, 2023. Since 2023, you've increased 19% of participation, which is amazing to see. And Gisele, I think that we're going to see much more growth hopefully in 2025 as well. So Gisele, I'd like to ask you to come back on if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm here.
There you go. And it really is, for all the work that Gisele and the rest of the chapter leaders and contributors, and it's fantastic to see the growth in Brazil.
Eu quero agradecer. Thank you very much, Daniela, for your consideration. E eu quero agradecer a todos os outros membros aqui do Capítulo Brasil. Nós temos uma comunidade muito ativa. Alguns são conduzidos para ser chairs, que são líderes, né, que organizam a comunidade, prestam serviços. Mas nós temos tantos outros, os nossos antecessores. Nós tivemos o Courtney, o Marcos Sarris, o Renato Teixeira, o Fernando Marino, né, e tantos outros que estiveram aqui conosco, prestando esse trabalho de organizando a comunidade. Não somente os líderes, mas a comunidade em si. É muito generosa, contribui muito, entrega, compartilha conhecimento, faz apresentações, vai nos eventos, e nós temos o suporte aqui do staff, da Daniela e todo o staff da Karen Ottoni, o David Boswell, sempre muito querido, thank you very much, David, o Hart, Montgomery, nosso CTO, a Tracy. Então, nós somos o que somos porque nós estamos unidos, né? All together. So, thank you very much, Daniela.
You're welcome. So, and I think, the Brazil's digital future is really important. And this is why we've been very supportive over the years in growing the community there. And I think it's a major opportunity. You have a strong educational foundation. You have a growing reputation with Brazilian engineers. I hear it all the time across all ecosystems. And I do believe that you're playing, a really important role in shaping the future of technology and infrastructure, both in Brazil with projects like Drex, for example, but also internationally. I think you have an opportunity, and very often I point other regional leaders to the work that Drex is doing, for example, or the work that's being done in digital identity that CPQD is leading, and many other projects as well. So it is really fantastic to be able to be an ambassador to Brazil worldwide as well. So thank you all for your support as well. Gisele, would you like to tell us about what's happening in June, and then we'll open up to the Q&A? No, did we lose?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry.
E pode fazer em português, mas o anúncio.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Daniela. Ano passado, nós tivemos uma grande experiência fazendo um meetup, fazendo um encontro nas vésperas do FebraBanTech, que é uma das maiores feiras do mundo de tecnologia para o setor financeiro. Esse ano, nós queremos repetir o sucesso do ano passado, tivemos quase 70 pessoas, tivemos a presença da Daniela no evento, e depois ela ficou na FebraBanTech. E esse ano a Daniela novamente vem aqui para o Brasil, nesse evento, e a gente quer fazer esse encontro na véspera, na segunda-feira, final da tarde, à noite, fazer um happy hour, fazer um encontro, fazer uma apresentação da Daniela e de outros panelistas que vão estar junto conosco. Então, é uma grande honra tê-la conosco, Daniela. Thank you very much. You're very welcome here in Brazil, all the time, always. E a gente vai anunciar em breve o local, as palestras, o formato do evento e o seu conteúdo. Mas no momento, a gente quer pedir que vocês salvem, que vocês reservem essa data para poder participar conosco. Vai ser em São Paulo. O Febrantec acontece 10, 11 e 12 de junho. Nós faremos no dia 9, final da tarde. Então, aqueles que vão para São Paulo já comprem suas passagens para chegarem durante o dia e estarem disponíveis no final da tarde para nos encontrarmos, né? Então, seria isso. Daniela, would you like to go directly to the Q&A? Or you have...
Yeah. Well, I just want to introduce Hart Montgomery. Hart, maybe you can come on video as well. So Hart is our CTO, and I asked him to join us. He is also the executive director of the Post-Quantum Cryptography Alliance. Many of us have multiple roles here at the Linux Foundation. So Hart, welcome. And we can go to Q&A, and I'll go ahead and stop. And if you want to ask, se você quer perguntar perguntas, pode dizer em português e o José ou eu podemos traduzir em inglês. Podem ligar a câmera, se quiserem ligar a câmera, para nós ver as vossas caras também. E eu estou a fazer algumas das answers no chat também. So, José, pode começar.
Nós temos a primeira pergunta aqui do Jorge. Ele abriu as perguntas e ele pergunta: Hyperledger Foundation é uma fundação dentro de outra fundação? Por que precisou fazer uma fundação dentro de outra? Why do you have one foundation inside the other foundation? So Linux Foundation is the broader foundation, then we have another foundation inside. So why do you need this kind of model, Daniela?
It's a good question, George. So the model for the Linux Foundation is a big umbrella, and there's resources that the Linux Foundation does, events, training, obviously, finance and the assistance of the projects. But each project funds, meaning that they They fundraise for the projects. The members that join those projects are, if they're on the governing board or they're representatives of the general members, they have a say in the project. So each project, whether, for example, today, LF Decentralized Trust, just like Hyperledger, was a project in the umbrella. If you think about projects like CNCF, Cloud Native Computing, which is where Kubernetes sits, or RISC-V, or many of these other projects, they're all under the Linux Foundation umbrella. And this, back to the why umbrellas make sense, is that there's a lot of value and a lot of cost savings and opportunities for cross-pollination when these foundations are all under the LF. E Jorge, se você... Não sei se tem vídeo ou quer perguntar mais perguntas.
Jorge, você está conosco? Talvez não. Algumas pessoas estão sem microfone. Mas ok, se tiver mais alguma pergunta, pode abrir o microfone, a sua câmera, ou perguntar aqui no chat. Nós temos uma pergunta da Clara. Por que o Bezo não tem mais o nome? Ah, você explicou isso. Why Bezo has not Hyperledger in his brand anymore?
Yeah, so it's uma boa pergunta, Clara. So great question. We get that quite often. As I mentioned before, with these projects, the maintainers, so these are the individuals that maintain and contribute to the code base. They're the ones that make decisions based on what they feel is most appropriate for their projects. So I'll give you another example before talking to about Bezu. We have Hyro, right, which was one of the new projects that came in. Hyro had the opportunity to be called Hyperledger. Any project that comes in, if they choose to have the Hyperledger name, they can still do so. They chose to have Hyro without Hyperledger as well. The Bezu maintainers, and you can check to see who the Bezu maintainers are in the GitHub, they made a decision that they wanted to be a standalone brand called Bezu. So they retained the Bezu trademark. We made sure that it was trademarkable. We worked with them to make the changes. We made the logo changes. So the important thing is the maintainers. I can't tell them what to do or not to. The maintainers are the ones that make a decision as to what they name themselves.
Muito obrigado. Agora nós temos temos algumas perguntas sobre o Drex. Drex is our CBDC, promoted by Brazilian Central Banks. E penso talvez a Daniela poderia passar para o Hart. A pergunta é: a LFDT, a Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust, está ajudando o Banco Central para resolver os problemas de privacidade e velocidade do Drex. Is LFDT helping Brazilian Central Bank to solve the privacy and scalability of our CBDC, Brazilian CBDC? Daniela, Hart?
Hart, you want to take that one?
Sure. We actually have a paper coming up that we've sent to the Drex team. It's not public yet, but will hopefully be public soon. That sort of works as a privacy add-on that provides quantum harvest now, decrypt later security and privacy and auditability. Some folks, including folks from Kaleido, are working on pushing this implementation as well. So it's definitely something we're working on and considering. Performance is another thing that's obviously being considered. That's definitely a day-to-day thing that Besu maintainers are constantly working on. Everybody wants solidity and the EVM to be able to process more transactions.
We have another question here about the Bezu. Where it is? And Drex and Bezu. O Brasil escolheu o mesmo para implementar o Drex. Outros países escolheram o Fabric. Qual o melhor na opinião de vocês? Good question. Uh, Brazil's central bank have chosen BESO to implement the Drex, our Brazilian CBDC. Other countries have chosen Hyperledger Fabric. In your opinion, Daniela Hart, what is the best one?
Well, I think it really depends on what the banks are trying to do and how they approach it. So I'm going to hold 1 second. I'm going to pull up a slide. Give me 1 second, see if I can pull this up. So you all are very familiar, obviously, with Drex, but really across the world, in central bank digital currency projects, whether they're in production, like the Central Bank of Nigeria, for example, or in different experimentations, like what's going on with the European Central Bank, we find that LF decentralized trust projects, Bezu, Fabric, and Hyperledger Roja, continue to be selected. All these banks, and they are very public about what they make choices on, and we're very grateful for that, do have different requirements. And some of these requirements are legislative requirements around how they handle different things. So you'll see more and more of these projects publish, and a lot of the Bank of International Settlement projects like Project Stella, and others, putting out reports based on their requirements and how the technology and our open source projects do meet them as well. Our perspective is that when the central bank or the BIS or other institutions are making decisions, one of the things that we hear over and over again is that they select projects from within Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust because they understand that the projects are openly developed and openly governed with an Apache 2.0 license, with an active supporting community that is neutral, that does not have vendor dependencies. And that's really what we're focused on, is making sure that there's that optionality, but all with the same governance of open source, open development, and neutrality that the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust brings. Hart, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are obviously trade-offs between, Fabric or Besu or other platforms. Um, in general, I would say that, Fabric, you can achieve, higher TPS because there are some things that you can do with Fabric chain code that you can't do with Solidity or with the EVM. But the Besu EVM approach gives you obviously greater connection to the Ethereum ecosystem. And that means you have, all of the tools that are built for Ethereum, you can essentially use without any extra work as well. So, there are a lot of trade-offs. People are trying both. And which one you want to choose, should depend on how closely you want to be involved with the greater Ethereum ecosystem or blockchain ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you, Hart. Thank you, Daniela. Is that okay? People wanna add something more comments on these answers?
Tá uma pergunta: como faz para a minha empresa participar da LFDT? So, José, obrigado pela vossa pergunta. E nós temos, deixa-me ver que eu vejo aqui. Você vai no website lfdecentralizedtrust.org e faça o clique no Join. e pode ver a informação sobre o membership options. Nós teremos 3 options: Premier Membership, General Membership e Associate Membership. Mas para participar no open source community não é preciso ser member. Há muita gente que está hoje aqui no Zoom, mas em outras áreas aí no Brasil, que participam e fazem conteúdo também e não são members. Mas nós temos os members que estamos, vamos ver aqui, e vamos para o mês vamos anunciar mais members novos aí no Brasil. Mas no Brasil nós temos o GoLedger, está aqui, o GoLedger. Temos o Cheesecake Labs. Onde é que está o Cheesecake Labs? Temos, por escalar, muitas companhias que são fora do Brasil, mas que têm representação aí no Brasil. Também temos o Banco Central do Brasil, que é Associate Members. A CPQD também é Associate Member. E temos o CERPO também. E, José, esqueci-me de outros.
O BNDES,
O BNDES, sim,
BNDES,
aqui, o BNDES.
yes. Não.
E acho que é só. E como eu disse, para o mês vamos anunciar mais 2 aí que são
BRBPO, it's Brazilian too.
Uhum. Which one?
BRBPO.
BRPO. Ainda não fizemos o anúncio, mas já tem o announcement, mas já tem aí o logo as well. Mas se você vai aqui no Join e pode ver, e aqui tem um membership deck, e vai ver um membership deck que tem todas os benefits de membership, e deixa-me passar aqui um bocadinho depressa. Aqui ao fim tem o preço de membership. So, Premier Members, e depois o General Members e Associate Members, que é non-profits as well.
Talking about money, we have another question from José Carlos. The LFDT has funds to invest in projects in Brazil? Good question.
Uma boa pergunta. A pergunta eu pus answer. So we do not have funding for development or any time, but we have an ecosystem that continues to grow. So if you follow that link, you'll see some of the funding opportunities within our community with the likes of different projects that you have. And so I'll just open it up, and you can see and you can view some of the grants and others that are within our community as well.
We had a question here. Daniela has already answered, but I'd like to come back here. Maybe Hart would add something. It's a very interesting question. LFDT has LFDT had his own blockchain in its tokens. In which blockchain? So it's a very common question. Which are the LFDT token or blockchain? So as if you offer blockchain services.
Which pergunta?
A LFDT tem sua própria blockchain e seus próprios tokens.
Yeah. Sim, so I answered no. LFDT does not have a coin. So o LFDT não tem tokens, nem tem blockchain na rede. And we will never have a token. There'll never be a LFDT token. But we have projects, Bezu obviously on Ethereum, and Hyro, Hedera, Splice, which is a lab on the Kenton network, Fabric, Gala Chain, which is a gaming a layer 1 blockchain, and many more. There's a lot of examples, but the foundation, LFDT, will not ever have a coin or run our own network.
Nós temos aqui 2 perguntas, 2 questions about the Bezu. The first one is, do you have our Bezu maintainers, helpers in Brazil? Mariana Bennett Eu gostaria de convidar a Mariana, depois para falar um pouquinho sobre um projeto que nós temos aqui, mas ela pergunta se nós temos mantenedores, aqui no Brasil do Bezo.
Eu não sei. Hart, do you know if there's any Bezu maintainers that are based in Brazil? I don't recall any. Um,
No, and I'm about to post the list in chat. So as far as I know, there have been a number of contributors from Brazil, but no official maintainers. You could look at the list there, but I don't think there are any.
I think there's definitely been contributors. So the difference between, can you explain very quickly the difference between a maintainer and a contributor, Hart?
Sure. So a maintainer is someone who has essentially, merged privileges to the main branch of the code base. So they're responsible for reviewing pull requests and approving them. Contributors are anyone who contributes code. So you can think of sort of the maintainers as really the project leaders. As at least in Besu, the entire maintainer team votes on things like the roadmap, things that make it into the releases, and they also, again, approve PRs. Whereas a contributor is just anyone who contributes code.
Yeah, well, I'd like to mention that we have a Brazilian contributor that who's working on consensus. His name is Lucas Saldanha. He's a maintainer. It's a very nice guy. And probably we have another people contributing to the project, but the maintainer I know Lucas Saldanha.
Great. I didn't know he was in Brazil.
No, he's in consensus. Probably in Australia, not living in Brazil, but he's a Brazilian guy.
Brazilian. Once a Brazilian, Brazilian for life.
Yes, we are proud of him. And we have another question from Professor Bruno. Why they have changed Bezo roadmap? I don't know more any details.
Well, I'll just
Yeah.
say they constantly change the Besu roadmap because they need to stay compliant with mainnet Ethereum. So the Besu roadmap always changes to reflect the Ethereum Core Devs roadmap.
Okay.
Was there something specific, Professor Bruno?
I don't know.
I imagine there might be some questions around the plugin changes. I know that there's certainly been changes around that, or questions around that change.
Yeah, we have this discussion here in Brazil. People are worried about they changed some feature from the kernel. They discontinued some feature height from the kernel, the core of the Bezu, and they are now putting these features on. They are developing plugins. So people here, some people, we are discussing this with David, Karen, and Daniela. How could we understand this roadmap, and what could we do to get together with the maintainers and to present our needs here? Maybe if you can put some light on this subject, Hart, would be very helpful.
Sure, it's a great question. So the plugin architecture allows for a smaller and easier core EVM to manage. Lots of people weren't using all the plugins. So, plugins that you weren't using just contributed to code bloat, slower execution client, worse performance, and all of that. So have the fastest possible execution client, the idea is that sort of all the extraneous stuff could be pushed to plugins, so you don't have to use it if you don't want to. So Tessera, yes, Tessera is a great example of this. There was a ton of Tessera code that was sort of difficult to remove, actually. So getting rid of that has greatly sped up the core execution client. But I would say, the functionality is being duplicated elsewhere, right? So Pente, which is in the Paladin lab, can be used if you'd prefer to use Tessera. And you can use that through a plugin. But Tessera in the core code base of Besu was slowing down Besu for people that didn't want to use Tessera. So that's sort of the rationale for the plugin architecture. And other things and other features are sort of working that way too, where the code is being forked to a plugin. If you want to use it, you'll still be able to use it, but it won't slow down the client for people that don't want to use it.
I'm putting some resources on links, including the Besu plugin workshop that was done last year.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Hart, Daniela. I'm checking here this chat, but I think that you cover everything here. Now I'd like to ask close friend here in Brazil that you are helping a lot Brazil chapter community. Mariana Benedett, we start a study group to prepare ourselves to the Besu certification. We start with few people, less than a group, 4 or 5. Now we have almost 60 people in this study group, and Mariana played a very, very special role in this group, organizing subjects and organizing our presentations, asked to the experts to come to our group and present their experiences, people that participate in the trial of the Besu certification test. And now we are every Monday we are getting together people and presenting part of the program for this certification. So Mariana, if you're there, could you please present this initiative? We are so proud of your service for our community.
Hi.
Hi, Mariana.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Joselio. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. So yeah, as he said, like first it was the idea of actually me personally starting, studying for a certification, and then we realized that loads of people want to do that. So we were like, okay, let's gather some people to study for the certification, the Visu certification, right? And right now we are over 60 people. We, as I said, like we gather every Monday someone to present one of the topics that are required to for the test. And I think we already had, we are in our 8th week, I think. And yeah, already finishing and covering all the final topics. We put together some, some activities as well, and questions and Q&A sessions as well in the middle of it, like doing different practice. And yeah, we are very fortunately right now that we are having like different professionals and loads of people that are very excited about studying together, helping together each other, basically. So thank you.
Não, muito obrigada a vocês todos. I know everybody's very excited about it. I put a link for those who aren't aware of the Besu Hub. It's really great to see. So thank you. We're here to support you. Let us know how else we can support you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. Você tem feito um grande serviço, a gente fica muito feliz. Nós temos uma comunidade muito generosa e você é um exemplo disso, dedicando muito do seu tempo para trazer os conteúdos, fazendo atividades, motivando, né, os nossos colegas aqui. E também quero agradecer, não vou nem conseguir citar nome porque são tantos, que toda segunda-feira vem apresentar uma parte do conteúdo, trazem, né, suas experiências, contam como eles foram na prova, como eles estudaram para a prova. Inclusive, esse conteúdo, ele é um conteúdo muito valioso que serve não somente para quem quer fazer a prova, porque nem todos querem, not everybody want to get certification, mas querem aprender, né? E aí a gente está vendo que as pessoas estão vindo para o grupo e participando. Muito provavelmente esse material vai ficar num histórico na Wiki, né, que a Daniela colocou aqui no chat. Mas a gente pode fazer outras rodadas disso, né, desse conteúdo para ajudar novas pessoas que querem conhecer isso. Então, Mariana, muito obrigado, Mariana.
Muito obrigada.
Imagina.
É muito legal.
Obrigada.
Daniela, I think we covered everything that we had in the chat.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a great.
Agora, em junho, posso ver toda a gente que tem aí em São Paulo junto. And maybe we'll do a presentation on the Bezu Hub as well, during the June 9th event.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Really
Mariana,
nice.
você está em São Paulo? Ou...
Tô em Florianópolis, mas tô olhando já as passagens para participar da conferência. Aí, se precisar de ajuda com isso também, me coloco à disposição.
Sim.
Yeah.
Super. Definitely. Okay.
Okay. Excelente.
All right. Do you want to...
Então, penso que, Daniela, se você gostaria de continuar a apresentação, ou você, o Hart, ou o David gostariam de colocar algo mais, estamos aqui todos à disposição, Daniela.
Sim, se não tiver mais outras perguntas, quero agradecer a toda a gente por seu tempo e por as perguntas que tem. E se if there's anything that we can do, Hart, David, or myself, or Karen Tony, who's also on our team and supports our regional chapter in Brazil, please do let us know. Okay. And
Eu gostaria de fazer um convite a todos que estão aqui, que venham participar das nossas reuniões. Nós temos vários eventos como esse que a Daniela brilhantou junto com o Hart, que o Dave sempre nos ajuda, mas nós temos outros eventos, assim como a Mariana fez o Hub para o grupo de estudos, né? E a gente tem toda última segunda-feira, last Monday of each month, nós temos nossa reunião mensal às 18h30, 6:30 p.m. E nós temos vários eventos. E nós estamos com grupos no Discord, no LinkedIn. Nós temos uma grande comunidade no WhatsApp, bem movimentada. Nós temos alguns grupos no WhatsApp. Vocês nos encontram no LinkedIn, vocês vão me encontrar o meu perfil lá também. Aqui a Daniela colocou o nosso link. A gente está sempre tentando atualizar, né? Precisamos de voluntários, precisamos de pessoas. Venham participar. Como a Daniela colocou, né? Todos são bem-vindos. All are welcome here. Então, é uma alegria. E nós temos relações muito próximas e muito boas com outros regional chapters, né? Por exemplo, da América Latina, o Latam, né? Nós temos com o Alfonso Gouveia, um grande voluntário que ajuda muito, Ricardo Pietro, do Paraguai. Nós temos vários outros membros de língua espanhola que estão no Regional Latam, né? Latam Chapter. E a gente sente assim que a comunidade está crescendo, né? A LFDT soube organizar e trazer a comunidade e dar voz a ela. Muito importante o que a Daniela falou, que as plataformas, né, estão no ecossistema, elas têm toda a liberdade para desenvolver, para decidir, e esse trabalho que a Daniela, o Hart, a Karen, o David fazem é um trabalho que dá suporte a isso e está dando muito certo. Então, aqui do Brasil, a gente quer agradecer vocês, muito obrigado, vocês são todos muito bem-vindos. Se a Karen que está aqui, o David Boswell, o Hart puderem vir para o Brasil, serão muito bem-vindos aqui. Ficaremos muito felizes em encontrar vocês pessoalmente. Então, muito obrigado a todos. Queria dar para pedir a Daniela que fizesse as palavras para a gente fazer o nosso encerramento. Muito obrigado. Thank you very much, Hart.
Thank you, Hart. Thank you, David. E outra vez, Gisele, muito obrigado pelo seu suporte pelo Regional Chapter e para todos vocês que atenderam hoje. E até logo, não, como é que se diz? Até soon, see you soon, como é que se diz em português?
Até breve, até
Até
breve.
Até
breve,
mais.
até breve para todos. Muito obrigado. Boa noite.
Boa noite.